Very warm welcome to the Women in Cycling webinar on recruitment. Recruitment is key to boosting diversity for the very traditionally male-dominant cycling sector. And this is also why the Women in Cycling Network has chosen recruitment as our main theme for 2022. Today, we are doing this webinar in partnership with Cycling Innovation Network, and I will now introduce you to my co-host, Kraemer, who is the chair of the Cycling Innovation Network and also a headhunter and HR expert. Over to you, Till.
Thank you very much, Laura, for this warm introduction. Welcome, everybody, also from my side. For this exciting webinar, recruitment, women in cycling. How can we get more women into the cycling sector? Let me say a couple of words to me. My name is Till Kraemer. I'm in the bicycle and sports industry since 25 years as a headhunter and a recruitment specialist in the cycling industry. Today, I am representing the Cycling Innovation Network, which is the latest working group of Cycling Industries Europe. And the aim of Cycling Innovation Network is basically to showcase best practice examples and webinars, member-led webinars from cycling industries members, which have to do with innovation. For example, we are doing things like how to attract funds how to attract funds if you have a bicycle startup. We have been doing things about how to make use of academia and how you can collaborate in product innovation. So this is a very interesting mission. Everybody's welcome, of course, to join us here. Today, I am very, very delighted to be able to moderate this session. We have a very, very exciting panel, and I would like to introduce this diverse panel right now, straight away. So in the first step, we have Olivia Prud'hon, which is the Director of Human Resources at 15. 15 is a merger of Smooth and Zoof, two frontrunners of the active mobility revolution that teamed up in 2021 and are now united at 15, which is takes reference to the 15-minute city, a concept whereby cities are designed so that all essential access in less than 15 minutes on foot or by bike. Very, very happy to have you here, Olivia, and to hear your presentation later. Second, out of the industry, we have one a very, very interesting person out of one of the big players out of the cycling industry. Welcome, April Marsch. She's the head of e-bikes at Specialized. She's been working in the cycling industry since 10 years and has been worked in 4 different countries, a part of the US, in many countries in Europe. Prior to e-bikes, she was doing business development for the women category teaching retailers. And we will hear some very, very interesting things, how she is dealing with the male industry, well, with the male-dominated industry, especially in the engineering part. And I'm very, very happy to have you here, April. Then we have Esther from Garderen, which is the CEO of Fietsersbond. Esther is the Women in Cycling ambassador, has been working in the cycling industry in Dutch cycling units since more than 20 years. And she's very, very inspired by the idea of how cycling can be a deep solution for tackling the problems we have in the traffic of today's big cities. And then last but not least, I welcome Ruth Lopian. She's Equality Coordinator at DJ Mobility and Transport at the European Commission. as a policy officer and quality coordinator in the Directorate for Mobility and Transport in the European Commission. She's promoting women in transport sector and has therefore set up Women in Transport as a platform of change. As Ruth is regularly in touch with representatives from all models of transport, she's aware of the number of initiatives that the sector is taking, of the different initiatives of the sectors, and how to attract and retain women. So we are very, very happy to see your presentation later. And yes, I think this is a very, very exciting topic. We have now over 120 people participating in this event. We had more than 300 registrations, and I see the number constantly going up. So Laura, shall we jump into the content and start the panel interviews?
Absolutely. My first question goes to Olivia. Olivia, as HR director to one of the front-running bike share services in Europe, how big part does gender equality play when you recruit new employees, and what are the main bottlenecks when you want to recruit more women?
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. And so gender equality plays a very important part when we recruit new employees, because 15 has the ambition of bringing mobility to as many people as possible. So in order to do that, we want our staff, I mean, men and women, of course, to reflect society in order to take into consideration needs and issues for everyone. The thing is, when we open a technical position, we can observe that only 13% of applicants that are female. So I think that rather than asking, why don't we recruit women, we need to ask, why do so few women apply for technical or scientific jobs? And a large part of the answer lies in education. Indeed, very few girls are still following scientific and technical courses of studies which train to our professions. For instance, only 10% of computer science students in France are girls. And in 30 years, the number of women engineers in computer science in France has fallen from 1/3 of the workforce to only 15%. Again, in France, the science final year, only 15% of students who choose engineering sciences specialties are girls. So the question is, why are there so few girls in science? And I think it's mainly because of gender stereotypes, that technicals or scientific subjects are for men, or in professions that are more suited to men than women, and also about women's ability to have skills in these fields. So, based on that, how can we change things? And I think that in order to have more women in our professions in the long term, we need to act early to make young girls aware of existing sectors and to support them in their choice of career. What can we do? So I think one option could be intervening in secondary schools, for instance, to present our professions and studies that need to be done to be trained, but also to have our female employees testifying and sharing their experiences, explaining their profession, encouraging and giving professional perspectives, and also be inspiring role models. Another option could be setting up partnerships with school to host young girls on internships, or to offer our employees to the opportunity to be mentors. And we thought about a third option, which could be participating in recruitment forums and exhibition with female employee ambassadors, and by highlighting our professions and the path to get there. So in a nutshell, it's a long-term process, but if we want things to evolve, we need to go further in our approach. So this is the thing that we are thinking implementing in 15. We have settled partnerships with school in order to raise awareness of the world of cycling and to present the profession and the route to it. We are going to propose to our female employees to share their experiences and their backgrounds. On the subject of partnership, we have approached some associations whose aim is to promote girls in the world of technology in order to offer internships, to involve employees. And we also have many women in our company who are part of associations with the aim of including women. So we are speaking with those employees in order to understand and to see what we can do to support them. And beyond of that, we plan to roll out an awareness campaign. So, hey.
Thank you, Olivia, for this brief introduction. By the way, for you participating attendees, if you have any questions, it would be great if you put them in the chat below. We are going to collect them and see in the panel discussion later on to see if we can ask them to the panelists. But Olivia, I was actually, one thing I wanted to comment is basically 13%, only 13% of people, of women which are applying. This is, I thought this number would be around 25–30% at least, but it is so low. I was actually thinking that we are doing better, and this is very, very urgent that we're acting here, because that's almost only 1/10 of 100%. And of course, we all know that there is no, that is exactly the same from the ability, which the potential we are losing here, or companies are using here, or the whole sector is losing here, is vast. And I really like the things, and maybe the panelists later have some other ideas also about what can be done to really challenge this topic, to overcome and increase this number significantly. Thank you, Olivia. We will see each other later in the discussion. Now I would like to give the question to April. And April, my question here is for you: how has your experience been as a woman in a male-dominated industry, and how have you encountered obstacles? What is specialized in specific doing as a global company to bring women into their company?
Thanks for everyone for having me, and thanks for asking this really important question. So I've worked in male-dominated industries for a long time. Before cycling, I actually worked in golf, which has a very similar issue. The biggest obstacle that I've seen in both industries, and my time specifically with Specialized, has been in the past, bringing more women into the company or bringing women into cycling has been the women's role. And I think, unfortunately, there's probably more women on this call because we're trying to do the recruiting and we're trying to solve this issue, but it's really everyone's role. We don't want it to become a zero-sum game mindset where if one team gets a resource, the other team doesn't get a resource. And when I first started with Specialized, we actually had a women's separated product team, women's marketing, women's business development, which the intention behind that was to draw focus on an area where we really wanted to grow, and we wanted to understand those riders, and we wanted to do the right thing for the rider and for the industry. But what we learned through that was that inside the team, it was very collaborative, very supportive, and a great environment. But when we had to go ask for resources, it became a very us versus them mentality. And that's never great. You don't want to create that sort of competition within product groups. You want everyone to be focused on riders, you know, the external, who do we want to bring in? Who do we want to start cycling? And so we actually started a task force And it was led by product, but it was cross-functional, men and women, all different departments. And we started to talk about, hey, we have this new data from Retool Fit, and we want to make better products that are fitting men and women, because we, through the data, we learned a lot. And outside of what the product did, this task force taught us that this is everyone's job. And we started to see the benefits of hearing these different perspectives from both men and women. And we started to get a lot of allyship through that, where there were men supporting women. They started to see leadership qualities in each other. And there were some kind of natural mentoring that started. A couple years went by, or a year went by, and these women actually they got separated out of these specific teams. And we broke down the organization and went back to, instead of having a separated women's brand, we brought the women's product and women's initiatives into the specialized brand again. And we actually, the solution was, one, inclusion is everyone's job. And we integrated women into every team. So instead of having them more siloed and working specifically on a specific rider target, we saw a really great opportunity for women to learn and see different parts of the business. Men were learning from the women because we started to have a lot more thought diversity than we had in the past. And that was really powerful. At that point, there were more women in more places and more recruiting of women into different roles. Many of you may have heard that line, like, when you're a woman and you get elevated, you throw the ladder back down so that and you start bringing other women up. And that's something that we've started to see within our organization. The challenge, and this is where the retention piece starts. Really, that is a challenge for us. Retention is, we have a lot of women who want to come into the industry, they come into the brand and they're powerhouses. But keeping them there is hard, because the culture, all cycling culture for the most part, has been predicated on fast riders, a lot of competition, and that can be a very difficult, uninviting environment. And so that's something that we're actively trying to work through. Going back to making it everyone's job, some of the specific things that we're doing at Specialized is giving a manager's toolkit on how they can reach out to women's engineering groups that are in their country or in their space. There's one in Taiwan that we work closely with, and trying to diversify the candidate pool. As Olivia had alluded to, only 13% of the applicants for technical roles, we have that similar problem. And so reaching out to managers to make those connections with industry groups is very important. On the retention piece, one of the downsides of having more women and spread out throughout the company is that sometimes you're the only woman in a meeting, one meeting, and then another meeting, and then another meeting. And that can be really hard after a while. And so one of the things that I think is really important is a group like this, having these women's industry groups that you can reach out to. You have a network to get advice on, to get mentorship if you're not seeing it within your own company, and help to bring other women in, and then create that lasting environment and that place where they feel comfortable, feel confident, and see growth opportunities. I think that's about it. Oh, one other thing I forgot: the Cycling Alliance. One of the things that we were talking about pro athletes, and how a lot of times they come into the cycling industry once they've retired, and you see that a lot in the men's pro tour cycling. And through the Cycling Alliance, Specialized works with a couple other industry leaders to find paths for female athletes into the industry, which we really want to keep that knowledge and that talent, and really give them a path after their retirement as well. That's it.
Thank you, April, for this nice, brief, but very packed information you have been giving to us. What I found very interesting is this very last one, this Cycling Alliance, which I think there is a great opportunity for putting this out to reaching really out to the stakeholders which are responsible for recruiting, to bring this knowledge in the industry. I myself would be even interested in hiring a person here, because we are looking for these kind of knowledge out of the industry. But maybe this could be a point of discussion to see how this can be collaborated with other brands, with other businesses. So I think that's a very interesting one. Thank you, April. We will see each other also later. And Laura, I think you might have a question for the next panelist.
Yeah, next question goes to Esther, and we go to the Netherlands. So in the Netherlands, more women cycle than men. How is that reflected in the cycling sector? And why is it important actually to enhance gender diversity within all levels of our sector?
Thank you. In the Netherlands, more women than men cycle on a daily basis for their trips to school, to work, etc. And as to the April's story, when I started as a project manager for international infrastructure projects in the Netherlands with this big engineering company, I was the first female project manager with a lot of men over there. And we had a meeting with the World Bank, and it was my project. And our director asked our secretary to make some copies. And the first thing she said was, "Why doesn't she do it?" So the secretary said to me, "Why can't she do it?" Because also the women in that company found it a bit awkward in the beginning that there was a professional person who wasn't a secretary but a project manager who was female. That was in 1998, I believe. So there was a lot of work to be done. What we see in the Netherlands is that a lot of women cycle on a daily basis and also for a hobby. And I'll tell you later about the slide, but this story reflects also that in management positions or on all levels, as a matter of fact, at all professional levels, it's not equal, not on the advisory part, on the public, on the transport planning part, on the cycling planning part. And what we need is this, for once and for all, you need female perspective on management questions and on leadership, because we all know that diverse companies make more profits, are more effective, but especially when we come to cycling as well, cycling planning and urban planning, but also the design of bikes, there's a female perspective on how what is a pleasant place to cycle, and women are the champions in trip combinations. They make sequential trips because they go to kindergarten, then they go to work, then they shop for groceries, and then they come home again. And so this chaining of trips is a typical female thing in the Netherlands, and we need to make those 15-minute cities where we also earlier talked about, because when you can cycle to all your destinations in your life, and you can do it safely, but not only traffic safely, what most white men think about, but not social safety, so that you feel comfortable also at night, is often very long forgotten. Also within Fietsersbond, I had to tweak our goals a little bit to say we also need to talk about social safety, and another perspective also is that in designing your city and your cycle paths and your infrastructure, you also need to have the perspective of children, because they're smaller than we. So you have to, the level that they see things. So we also need them to, we don't need them as a CEO of our partners, but we do need their knowledge. And the last part of diversity that we miss in the Netherlands is that we don't have a lot of people of color or immigrants who work in the cycling industry and planning of cycling. And that's also on our mission, I think, because we need also that perspective on our design and planning of cycling infrastructure. Enough? And that's why it's important to have the gender equality, but also cultural equality in all our aspects, because it makes our decisions much better. That's what I think. That's what I believe.
Yes, thank you, Esther. There was one comment directly which I would like to ask you, a specific question to you. Did you say there is more women cycling than men on bikes in the Netherlands?
Yes.
Do you have some numbers somewhere? Is the situation the same at night time?
No, it's less at night.
It's less at night.
Yes. And that depends on the, is it in the outskirt or in the center? You see this, so it's, you can, where it's very busy, it's equal, but and an industry terrain or in the harbor where then they go by car when it's dark.
Yeah, well, very understandable.
Yes, of course.
I hope that answered the question, Marie. Thank you, Esther, for this nice introduction. I think also we have been learning here from you many things, how important it is to have the different views. What I think is super important, of course, is the view of children when it comes to making cycling safer, cycling infrastructure safer, and of course, we will having some other views on this. We will getting them from the other panelists. Ruth, I have a question for you, if I may ask you. How are other modes of transport dealing with the shortage of staff, and notably how they are attracting women to the sector? Are there any good practice examples from other sectors which the cycling industry can learn from?
Yeah, thank you, Till, for the question, and thank you for having me for this super interesting panel and seminar. As you mentioned in the introduction, I'm not representing any industry point of view or perspective, but I can draw from the experience I've made in connection with the Women in Transport platform for change that was already set up by the European Commission in 2017 and which has been very active since. As you said, that overall the transport sector is suffering from an increased shortage of workers and also from an aging workforce. Only 22% of transport workers are women, most of whom work in administrative positions. And we see that there are less than 5% of women work as pilots, as seafarers, or as truck or train drivers. With the Women in Transport platform, we have taken first steps to address this sector's gender gap. And our latest initiative was the Women in Rail Award, which was a joint initiative of the platform together with the rail industry to honor achievements and efforts to make the rail sector more diverse and inclusive. And I have to say that we were really impressed to see how many very interesting and effective and efficient initiatives were going on the ground in the rail sector to attract more women. But in view of the time, of course, I have to concentrate on practices of two of the winners. The winner we had 4 categories of winners, and the winner in the category of best employer was Deutsche Bahn. And they won, for instance, because they have set concrete targets to increase the number of women from currently 24% to 30% in 2024. Deutsche Bahn has already made systematic efforts to create a gender-balanced, respectful, and inclusive working environment, taking into account the needs of a diverse workforce. For instance, by offering flexible working time schemes, part-time work, and job sharing. Deutsche Bahn also organized recruitment seminars and interview training dedicated specifically to women. They have a specific Women Month in 2021. They've also taken a number of measures to raise awareness and information about the activities that they are doing inside the company and on the labor market. And these efforts have already borne fruit. In 2021, for example, Deutsche Bahn received over 80,000 applications from female candidates. It's a big company, of course. And they hired over 4,700 female candidates. So this was one example from the Women in Rail Awards. The other one, the winner in the Rising Star category, you can see her certificate on the slide, was not a company, but a woman, Linda Allen, who is head of talent management at Irish Rail. And Linda won because she has transformed the experience and opportunities for all women in Irish Rail through the establishment of a talent management center, which has set up several programs. And most notable was the Women in Leadership Development Program that she set up in collaboration with the Trinity College in Dublin. And it was mentioned before that this cooperation between academia and industry can really help raising interest of women in tech professions and in STEM studies. And this has already been a success because the most recent graduate intake for this program was comprised of 56% of female participants. So we can see that there are very good and successful examples in rail, for example, but we all know that certain parts of the transport sectors are really suffering from harsh working conditions, including shift work, long working hours, periods spent away from home. This is probably not the case in the cycling sector, but I would still like to mention a study that the Commission published in 2021 on staff scheduling and rostering practices in transport. And this study identifies a number of good practices and makes practical recommendations on how staff scheduling systems can better take into account the needs of a diverse workforce, notably to improve work-life balance. And this benefits, of course, all workers, but women and caregivers in particular. Here as well, I would like to single out two practices, one again from rail, and the other is from air transport. The first practice is a collective agreement, which covers all workers in a particular transport sector and provides flexibility to workers in their working time and location of work. And the main aim of this agreement between social partners is to reconcile work and private life of workers. The second good practice is from aviation, as I said, and it allows staff members to indicate with which colleague they do or do not want to be in the same shift. This is a so-called buddy system where workers can nominate colleagues they would always like to work with or they would never like to work with them. This has nothing to do with sympathy or antipathy, but it is very relevant for workers, for partners who are working as colleagues in mobile jobs such as aviation, in particular when they need to reconcile their working life with childcare or other caregiver function. And another very important point and element for recruiting, which has already been mentioned by most of the other panelists, is awareness raising and reaching out to target groups. And here I would like to mention that the Commission has last year published 2 educational toolkits for primary and secondary school children to identify and question gender stereotypes. This has been mentioned, especially by the first panelist, that this is really an obstacle for women to take up a job in transport. And these educational toolkits help especially girls to discover career opportunities in the transport sector. And the toolkits are, of course, available in 24 languages for use in all member states. So to sum it up, the most crucial aspects in my view to recruit and retain more women to the transport sector is first, strong social dialogue and involvement of the workers in decision making, such as, for instance, also the autonomous social partner agreement on women in rail that was signed by the Community of European Railways and the European Transport Workers Federation in November last year. Then what is important as well is to have clear targets for female recruitment and comprehensive planning to improve working conditions so that it becomes attractive to work as a woman in a male-dominated sector. And of course, to reach out proactively to the target groups, to the women, waking their interest in STEM studies and tech professions already at an early age. And yeah, to sum up, the Commission has, of course, a number of tools to help industry with that. We have a number of programs for skills development and funding. So if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ruth, very much for this very, very broad examples and wide examples you have been putting up here. I think this is very, very interesting. There is one question or one thing what I thought would be very practical in terms of raising the awareness, raising the attention, is doing kind of a competition and saying, okay, we are collecting the best practice, we are collecting the best ideas in different categories and showcasing what best practices are there. And then to the end, you mentioned something that raised my attention. You were talking about there are funding schemes which are available for certain sectors from the European Union. Would you have a practical idea how this alliance, Women in Cycling, could eventually create a use case for accessing funds of the European Commission, of the European Union, which are designed to help to recruit more women into the cycling sector?
Yeah, this would probably be mostly linked to skills development. We have a number of a skill program to improve digital skills, for example, or to for learners to adapt to the challenges of digitalization and automation. We have the Pact for Skills, for example, which offers funding programs. We have, of course, also the Erasmus Plus program, which allows not only students, but also apprentices to get experience and working experience in different countries. So there are a lot of funding possibilities and training possibilities. And I'm happy to discuss that bilaterally with you, which options there are. But I think it would lead too far now to give you an overview of all the different programs the Commission is offering.
Of course, that is completely understandable. I was just thinking it is important because I know from my own experience with public funds, oftentimes they are there, but they're not easy to access, or there are certain hurdles which people think that they are undoable in order to access. So this is something which is there. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone for the answer of the introductory question we had. My question to the panelists is, has there been comments, or has there been, while people were presenting, have there been comments from you where you would like to comment on what the other panelists have been talking about? Is there someone who would like to share something with us? Okay.
I have one question linked to, one of the recommendations from Ruth. You said, you were recommending that we need clear targets for female recruitment. I would like to give this to all of you panelists. Do you have in your company or organization, and for Ruth, of course, in the European Commission, do you have a target for female recruitment?
Can I answer that one? Yes. In our organization at the National Bureau, we don't need it because it's 50-50 at the moment, including the management team. But we are also a community of 2,200 volunteers, and there is very much male white domination of pensionados, but I do like the work that they do, but they don't always welcome younger and females. So that's what we are working on. And we also, to take it broader, we have signed the diversity chapter of our charter of our National Economic Board. And so we are working on diversity plans in recruitment and retainment, and that would not only include women, but also from other cultures. But the target is not necessary at the moment because we're 50-50.
Great, thank you. What about you, Olivia? At 15, you had great recommendations and action plan, how you're going to, enhance recruiting more women. Do you actually have a set target for that?
We don't have a target. We are working on a program, and but I think I would say that having 50% in technical position would be great. So this is our target.
Fantastic. Sounds really good. What about April with specialized?
Yeah, I will be very honest. I don't know exactly what the target is. I do know it's one of the strategic initiatives amongst many, and it's more about diversity and not singling out gender specifically. And that's really the target. So it's diverse. It's part of a larger diversity, equity, and inclusion platform that we're working through, rather than just one particular. Here's the percentage we have to hit for women.
Thanks, April. What about Ruth in the European Commission? What is the female recruitment target there, and where are you now?
Well, the Commission is already quite gender balanced, but we have, of course, very different functions in the Commission. So we don't really have a specific target on recruitment, but we look at how progress is made in middle and senior management positions. And there, with our first ever female president of the European Commission, and we also have a first ever equality commissioner, we have very clear targets to have gender balance by the end of this mandate, of this Commission's mandate, which is 2024. And the objective is to have gender balance in senior and middle management positions. And I have to look a little bit at the figures at the beginning of Mrs. von der Leyen's mandate. We had 36% in senior management and 41% of women in middle management. And at the beginning of this year, we can already see an increase of nearly 7% in senior management and a bit more than 4% at middle management. So overall, we have 42% of women now 45% of women now in management positions. So we're on the path to gender balance, hopefully by the end of this Commission's mandate.
good news over there. Yeah, it is a challenge for us as well, and that's why we actually, with women in cycling, we established an expertise portal, because we saw, we were looking for women for boards and for panelists at events, and our colleagues were also saying the same thing, that we want to have women there, but we don't know where to find them, and we want to have also people of color. We want to have diversity at our panels and on our boards, but we just can't find these women, because as we saw, the recruitment, the application level is also so low. So we established this expertise portal for women working in the sector who can sign up to the portal, and at least from that portal, when you are organizing an event or when you're looking for women for jobs or boards or interviews, you can find these women there. I think we have 350 women now there, and we haven't even started promoting it fully, but we need more of these actions to get more women in the sector for sure. Do we have more questions from the audience?
Yes, we have an interesting one, which I would like to share. One person is asking, are any organizations of the participants focusing on the inclusion of trans women, or include women of colors? Are there any comments on this question?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch again on the idea that it needs to be more about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's creating an open platform for all of for all identifications, so that it's not just specifically called out, but absolutely it's part of a larger plan on how do you get more diversity of thought, of gender, identity into the organization.
Thanks, April. Olivia, is there anything specific at 15 you are doing in order to foster the diversity approach also for trans women or women of color?
We don't have specific program with regard to that, because for us there is no, it's not an issue. I mean, we are looking for everybody, so everybody is welcome in our company, and we don't have any focus to do on that.
Okay. Let me see. There was one.
I reflect
yes,
on.
Of course, Esther,
Yes.
go ahead.
There was a reason why we signed this diversity charter in the Netherlands, because it's obliges you to make a diversity recruitment and plan. And we did a course for that. And it turns out that you think you are inclusive enough, but you turn out not to be, because sometimes it's already in the ads that you say, I don't get any people of color, of physically challenged people, because, and then we learned that it's sometimes in your recruitment language that these people aren't attracted by the language you're using. So sometimes it's using tweaking your language. And we also have a new system to reward people, and we also have taken out some typical Dutch holidays and said these are free days to use whenever you have a day of your belief or culture, because then at least it's not the 5th when it's Liberation Day, but can also be after the Ramadan. So these are small steps, but sometimes you think it's not an issue, but sometimes you're not aware that your ads to recruit are not inclusive enough. So that this opened really my eyes. That's what I wanted to say about this.
I just want to touch on that, Esther. That's so important. We also implemented a tool that when you're writing the recruitment ad to get placed on the website, it calls out, it's underlining all of these things. And then you reread it with this new lens and you're like, wow, yeah, no, that's totally different. So it's made a big difference. That's a great tool that I would recommend more companies invest in.
And there was a comment with regard to the French writing, and it's true in France we have the distinction between men and female. It's true, and this is why now we really care about what we write in order to attract people and in order everybody to feel that they will be welcome in our company.
Well, I think this topic, what Esther was hitting, this is a really big topic in terms of the communication. The communication is always the key element, and I see this also in recruitment when we see job advertisements from companies who are recruiting. Oftentimes they are so impossible almost to complete or to be attracted. So people just buy. So there's so much work to do to find the right words and find the right wording in order to attract this. So this is already a big step if we can do this. But of course, what is the real issue here? What is the real issue for a person who is a trans woman? What are they experiencing? What are their problems? It's the same thing with the children. When you don't know what kind of necessities do you have. So it almost takes like a design thinking approach or something which really can embed all the aspects to bring this together. There was one interesting question I would like to ask, and maybe that is even our last question here, giving the time. We are 5 minutes before 5. We can probably go on forever, but there is a question from Francesca. Francesca is asking, good afternoon, especially Olivia said that you want to cancel gender stereotype. How do you plan to do it? Cycling as a sport globally is male dominated, but women are seeing a great increase overall with gravel and urban and e-bikes too.
Thank you for a question. Yeah, I think it's a long way we have, but we have to be all together, the women, to promote this sport as well. And yes, and as I said during my presentation, we need to go to school in order to explain that there is no gender stereotype. Everything is for everybody, and we as women, we are as able to do things in cycling as men. So I think communication, having ambassadors, encouraging young girls, and going through teaching and training would be a good way to change things.
Okay, thank you.
Could I still add something to
yes,
what Olivia said? Yes, thank you. This fighting or challenging gender stereotypes, when you mentioned it first, Olivia, that triggered a reaction immediately in me, because we have purposefully developed these school toolkits for school children to fight gender stereotypes, because this is really something that prevents women from entering a career in transport, because they think, oh, a lorry driver can only be a man, or a pilot can only be a man. And this has also to do with gendered language. I'm German, so my language is gendered as well. So if you do not teach the children from an early age that all jobs are for everybody and that women can do exactly the same as men can do, and actually digitalization or automation, especially in transport, can be a very good tool to help women with that, then you will never get out of these stereotypes. And this is why it is really important to start at an early age to raise this awareness. And I would really like you to, I will put the link in the chat. I would like you to use our toolkits. They are dedicated to teachers, but you can use them, anybody can use them, and they exist in all the languages, and they're really nicely prepared, and they have nice examples from the transport sectors how women and young girls can be attracted to the sector.
And we could share this information to our employee as well.
Definitely.
To do it in their own family.
Or in the schools of their children.
Yeah, of course.
Very good. Now I see we come in a really co-creation mode and bringing ideas bringing ideas to life. This is great. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. We want to be respectful with everyone's time.
Time to wrap up now, I think.
Exactly.
Fantastic discussion, fantastic ideas, fantastic insights. Thanks so much for all of our panelists. Thank you for all of you to joining us today. This was only the first in the series of our events with women in cycling, events and activities. Please come and join our LinkedIn group and also sign up to the expertise portal on Cycling Industries Europe website. But thank you so much for today, and hope to see you soon at Velocity at our next session.
Thank you.
Thanks.